the plan was probably Alexis McAllister, Mason Mount, but there was Thuram talk, there was Kone talk. Jörg Schmadtke's in now, obviously, I'm doing this. It felt like Liverpool's net had been cast far and wide here, which is very different, I think, to in the past where there's been specific players. It did feel like Liverpool knew they had to get these lads in, and we're going to have to go and do as much as we can because we can't pick and choose. This can't be Virgil van Dijk, where it's him or nobody. Then it felt like immediately the net had been cast all over Europe, really.
Yeah, and it had to be, like you say, because they were the glaringly obvious places that we had to go and strengthen. They had to be frontline options. We couldn't wait another window for this. It just couldn't happen because we'd have left with nobody, essentially. And we've done that in the past. We've been guilty of that in the past with the defenders previously. We waited for Tchouaméni. That never happened. And this time around, it was actually Bellingham before any of them, wasn't it? We wanted Bellingham so badly. He was top of that list. And then when you don't get him, you go to the next one. And we have been guilty, like I say. And I think me and you both had conversations with Neil Jones early on the summer whereby you say, Liverpool previously have had a list, and once the top target's not attainable, they just don't do anything. That couldn't happen this time around. If your top target didn't happen, your second target didn't happen, you have to keep going down that list, because otherwise, I didn't want to see what it looked like otherwise, to be honest with you. So it was a little bit different from Liverpool in that respect. And obviously when Schmadtke comes in as well, you start to hear rumblings of, you're going to be concentrating on the Bundesliga markets. Then when some of the names come out, Kone especially, obviously you think, well, that makes perfect sense. Of course it does, yeah. But McAllister, as you say, was definitely very high on that list. I'm not entirely sure we knew we were going to get him for as cheap as we did. Whoever sort of found that little, wasn't a release clause, was it? A mechanism in his contract, it was called, it was described as, yeah. So whoever found that deserves a little bit of a bonus, in my opinion. But yeah, that piece of business right at the start of the window as well was really smart, really good. And it set us off on a positive footing as well, because there was some uncertainty, there was a lot of unrest around the fan base and stuff, because these transfer windows in recent times, especially the summer ones, have been terrible. And then when you do miss out on Bellingham, there was a meltdown immediately after that. It's like, well, our top target's gone now, what do we do? Because we've got a recent history of not acting when our top target's gone elsewhere. Virgil van Dijk, Tchouaméni being the key examples. But this time around, touch wood, thankfully, when Bellingham did decide he was going to go to Real Madrid, we went, okay, then who's the next one? And it looks like potentially McAllister might have been on there as well, but McAllister might have been the next one. And it was done very, very quickly, which you've got to give us credit for.
On that clause, I think that's fair enough, isn't it? Like, because there was a lot of and ahhing who's actually going to be running the transfers this year. I remember Jörg Schmadtke's actually quite late into the party. He's not there that long before this window opens, and all of a sudden he's dealt with a massive rebuild. Liverpool have lost some big players there who played a lot of minutes for the football club. The McAllister deal was a sigh of relief to everybody, really, wasn't it? When that one got done, as early as it did get done, everyone's talking, Jürgen wants players in before pre-season. Well, there you go. That's boxed off. And the fee as well, when it comes out that they've paid somewhere around £35 million for Premier League proven, World Cup winner, brilliant footballer. That one, I mean, as signings go, if you were given that's like a 10 out of 10 signing. It just feels like that one in particular, they got nailed on straight away.
Yeah, on the Jörg Schmadtke thing, I'm not too sure he's actually done a lot. I don't think he's been at the forefront. I'm not too sure about that. But what I will say on the McAllister deal is I don't know why everyone's talking about 55 mil, because it was 35. The 55 is rising up to if such and such happen. It is very much 35 million, and it's an incredible bit of business. I was very confused at the time why no one else was in for him, really. There was rumours of people in, but Liverpool were the only one who would put it on the table.
I think Liverpool had done the work.
Maybe, yeah.
I think they'd done the Van Dijk situation where they'd been in his ear a long time.
We should say on that, it was a Julian Ward deal, this one as well. We should be at pains to stress at this point because it was his sort of parting gift to Liverpool, I think it was described as. So credit to him on that.
Yeah, unbelievable footballer, like you said, Premier League proven, and it was clear that we'd identified him. Even though it happened so early on in the window, it still felt like it dragged, because it felt like we'd been hearing the rumours for the past 3 months. And eventually, we get him through the door. It's a boss way to start. And at that moment, I thought, Liverpool mean business. They're going to rattle them off one by one by one. Didn't slightly work out that way, but at the same time, Liverpool got the business done in time, I guess. But yeah, having him come in was a big statement to the rest of the Premier League, because he was, cheap as hell. He was boss. A lot of people probably would have liked him in their team. And it was a great way to start off the window.
In the fullness of time, sorry to interject there, in the fullness of time, we screwed ourselves for Casado with the McAllister, and we screwed Chelsea for Casado, because us getting him so cheap, man, they absolutely dug their heels in on Moises Casado, didn't they? But I like the McAllister one was just brilliant, wasn't it? It was just you could see it, and the only other word that you guys didn't mention was versatile, because we've seen now, and we knew already that he could play that 6 as well as the 8 and stuff like that. I do wonder that Dan just mentioned the name a couple of times when he was talking. I think back now and wonder whether, we scrambled around for that £111 million for Casado. I reckon Liverpool kept tabs on Tchouaméni all summer as well, as somebody who we really thought, like, especially with Bellingham going to them, that I thought Liverpool might think there would be some movement on Tchouaméni, and they were there if they ever got a sniff about it, in much the same way as soon as they heard there might have been a little chance of Casado, they were in there. Same with Gravenberch. I think Tchouaméni was probably the biggest target this summer, and it didn't end up coming off.
Yeah, you're right, mate. You wouldn't surprise you, would it? They certainly had the irons and a lot of fires, and that is different in the past because, like I say, they've been so good as well. This is the difference, isn't it, Chris? I suppose is that when we were the team on the rise and we were being really, really picky, it paid off for Liverpool, and they got to the top of the mountain. And then what happened was when everyone aged together, and for whatever reasons, Liverpool didn't probably do enough to keep it ticking over, so they were left in a situation where, it feels like there was a lot in the Thuram links and the Kone links. Mason Mount, there was a lot in that as well. Gravenberch is rumbling on. Szoboszlai comes from nowhere, but it does feel like, they say, because they'd left it a bit one too many summers, perhaps they couldn't be laser focused. I think they were laser focused on McAllister, and that's why that one got done early. I don't think it was a big shock that it took a little bit longer to get the rest, because I don't think they actually knew he's the guy. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, probably. I think, obviously Szoboszlai has a big difference to everything that we do. I mean, they probably didn't think they were going to get Dom Szoboszlai, but they found out there was a release clause, and they went and paid the release clause, and that probably had a big impact on the second part of the summer as well. Most normal transfers you might have thrown down 30-40 million in instalments or whatever, and the fee might rise to 70-80 million over the course of it, but having to put down close on 70 million quid on one lad who they really wanted when they found out they could get him, I think then had a knock-on effect on the finances for the rest of the summer as well. And that probably led to them agreeing to sell Henderson and Fabinho, to be honest, having to put so much down on Szoboszlai.
Do you think then, and I want to speak about the Szoboszlai one next, Dan, I'll come to you on that one. That was, again, it was a very quick one. We know how this works, really. We've been doing it for a long time. You get the breadcrumbs are always out on, and it felt like every single breadcrumb was leading to Liverpool signing Kefren Thuram. Yeah. That's what it felt like. It felt every single piece was like the path is leading right towards Thuram, and I think we'd all be fine with that. I think most people were excited. I know, Chris, you had a little look at him. I think everyone was like, yeah, that would be a really good sign. And I think there were a lot of people, myself included, would have liked Mason Mount. It became obvious that he wanted to go to Manchester United. You see that path divert. It did feel like Liverpool took a sharp right towards Szoboszlai. I don't know in terms of how it actually went about when they made that pivot. Was he always the plan? But it came about very, very quickly. And before, I think it was linked on Wednesday, bought by Friday, Saturday, something like that. It was really, really fast that he got that one done.
Yeah, it was, but there was a deadline on his release clause, wasn't it? It was the Friday. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I was literally doing one of our news shows on Kefren Thuram when I first heard about it. I seen people started putting it in the chat on YouTube, and I was like, these just want me to try and pronounce his name, don't they? They're just trying to trick me here because there's loads of S's and loads of Z's. They want me to try and say it. And then I can't remember who came through the door. Someone came through, someone came through and said, no, it's a real thing. Check David Ornstein's Twitter. So I did. And as it turned out, Liverpool were very much in for Dom Szoboszlai. And I was over the moon with that, to be honest with you. I think you're right. We all kind of were very accepting of the Thuram deal. And it's interesting, obviously, we end up going to Gravenberch because Thuram, positionally, he's got that versatility that Gravenberch also possesses, because he can play in 6, he can play in 8, and it felt like that was what we were going for at the time. We just missed out on Mount, obviously, but then when the Szoboszlai deal comes about, or the opportunity to make the Szoboszlai deal happens, he's very much there. We haven't got Mount, let's get him instead, because in terms of stylistically, they're quite similar. But obviously Newcastle wanted him. He was essentially on his way to the UK to go up to Newcastle, and the first word we got sort of in the background was that he might end up going to Newcastle, but clearly he chose, which is a massive part of this transfer, by the way. Say what you want about Liverpool finding his release clause and then paying his release clause, but the fact that he decided between Newcastle and Liverpool, I quite fancy Liverpool, is a huge, huge tick in our box. So good on him for that. And listen, like I say, we've all been critical of Jörg Schmadtke, and rightfully so in some respects. We'll talk about how some of the sagas played out a little bit later on. But in this particular instance, because Julian Ward's gone by this point, this is nothing to do with Julian Ward. It's a Bundesliga signing, so you'd have to suggest that Schmadtke's had a big say in it. He's done it. They've found the release clause. They've got the deal done. They've spoke to him. They've spoke to the respective agents, etc., etc. And they brought in a very high class talent. But you're right. I was certainly Wednesday afternoon. First sort of tweet came out from Ornstein, and by the Friday morning, he was a Liverpool player. So big credit to Liverpool, because not only was that out of nowhere in terms of suddenly we wanted him, like I say, there was literally a deadline to get it done by, and we did it.
Yeah, he did, and he got a good deal.
Someone who I know works in F1, a good friend of mine, Sean, once said to me, because I like my F1 and stuff as well, and he once said to me, Formula One is essentially industrial espionage interrupted on a Sunday by a race. And it feels like football's gone that way as well now, doesn't it? You have to find these release clauses, and what are they doing to find these things out? Like, it must be crazy. Like, the amount of moles they've got in all these different places, and, speaking to players, that must be the way to do it, by the way. It must just be you've got to speak to someone in his entourage, agents, or a player or something like that. So it's funny though, but what it ends up being, and why I won't give Schmadtke all the credit unless it comes out that he's found it, is it's essentially like me buying a tin of beans in Tesco. There's the price. I go up to the till and I pay the price. Right? Schmadtke's done that essentially for Szoboszlai. If he found the information out, all the credit in the world to you. If it was one of your guys who found it out, all the credit in the world to you. If not, it's just like me buying beans in Tesco's.
You say that, but maybe you wouldn't have to convince the tin of beans to get in your trolley. I do. He hasn't got enough.
You've not seen me in the supermarket? You'll love it. You are going to go with some sausages, my friend.
I never go to the supermarket. I just use HelloFresh.
Oh.